Today's class, I don't know if you could tell, I brushed my hair and I I put on makeup because it's supposed to be a happy day. And we're really, this is about Yom Haasmaut. So hopefully, we'll try to find some uplift with each other today. It was a weird feeling. I was just like, getting dressed, the worst thing. But it's actually quite nice to feel that you have something to celebrate, and what we're thinking about and celebrating is the fact that of the Jewish homeland and the state of Israel, and as we think towards Yom Haasmaut. Of course, the way we celebrate Yom Haasmaut is that we do it in conjunction with thinking about Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron. I like the way that these memorials coincide, so that you're not only thinking about the celebration aspect of having Israel, but also everything that it's all of the journey that we went on to get here and the losses along the way. And whenever we're thinking about good as Jews, we know that it's combined with so many other things. So today for this class, we're gonna think about the good together as much as possible. Again, my condolences to all those who are suffering right now and who have lost someone, who have people in the hospital that we're praying for. This class is in memory of Stanley Chera by the Chera family, who was such a supporter of the SCA and of other organizations, and it's a loss that the community is feeling very deeply, and every loss we're feeling extremely. It's really been very difficult. So I wanted to think about something that's been impacting me a lot. I'm just curious about if anybody else is feeling this way. For some reason, and maybe this is my own brain, the sadder things get and the more difficult, and when I hear sad news, there is something inside of me that, and it's almost like this instinct, and I hope I'm not weird when I say this, that starts to long for Israel. Has anybody had any feelings like that recently? Just like a longing to be in Israel, or a longing to be connected there? Maybe yes, maybe no, but I see a thumbs up. Thank you. Yes, I see a few people gesturing now that they're having too much, major, very big. Yes, a lot of people are feeling this. I want to say it's a feeling. Whenever I have feelings like this, I wonder about them, because I always think about Israel. I always love Israel, of course. And, I usually actually, for a few years now, we've gone for Pesach to Israel, and it's the best experience. I mean, it's exactly how you're supposed to experience Israel. It's like prohibitively expensive, and it makes me angry that it's so expensive, because I want to get there more frequently. And especially if you have, my kids are older now, but I know traveling with little kids has always been hard for me, and getting there, and then the jet lag. But we're usually in Israel for Pesach for the past 2-3 years, and I wanted to be there this year. My daughter's bat mitzvah fell right on Pesach, so we really want to combine that. And I guess what I was wondering about is, like, what is this weird yearning that I'm having? It's always there, but it's not mild. It's like an ache. It's like an internal need that I feel like I'm experiencing. And literally every time I hear about a loss, something in me says, I need to be in Israel right now. And when I was analyzing that feeling in myself, I guess the most similar feeling I could think of, and maybe my mom is on this chat and she'll be embarrassed for me to call her out on this, but I'm one of those like strong, independent women. I don't talk on the phone too much, and I'm always, I do my own thing. But like when I run a fever, even in my own home at this age, the first person I usually call is my mom. And even if I don't call her, I'll sort of turn to my husband and expect him to be her, or my mom or my dad, to sort of, even my tough, and he'll be embarrassed if I give this story, like my tough 17-year-old son, like if he's not feeling good in the middle of the night, what's the first place he comes? He comes to, comes to our bed, comes to lie down, comes to be with us. And I think that instinct of when you're in pain to want to be connected to the place that you feel is 100% on your side, 100% your caretaker, 100% a place that you could call home, right? That feeling is very instinctual and it's very profound. And I don't think it's something we're controlling. And my mom is texting on everyone that she loves me, which is nice. She knows I do. I call her when I'm having a panic. So I think these feelings that if I'm not the only one, and it does not sound like I am, that we are having about Israel indicates something to us about what it means to be a Jew. And that there is an aspect of our identity that we're maybe only subtly aware of a lot of the time, but that comes to heightened awareness in times of tragedy or struggle, that we have a home and that we long to be there. And I often think in a crazy way, I know maybe this is a little dark, but I often think that if tragedy were to strike, I would rather it strike me in Israel than in America. I just that weird feeling like if Israel was in trouble or there was a war there, like I actually wouldn't feel like I had to stay here in America. Like I would almost feel driven to participate somehow, to be there with them, and to like link arms almost in like a warrior chain of, you know, we're all in this together. So that feeling is definitely predominant for me right now. And I want to explore it a little bit more. I wanted to talk about, first of all, to locate that feeling that we're having, and to note if you are having that feeling, it speaks to, and this is the second part of the class, like a part of our identity. And I like to think about the concept of Jewish identity a lot with people, because I think a lot of people take their Jewish identity for granted, but they don't do a lot of analysis around it. I once ran a discussion like this with with the seniors and a group of senior girls, and I said, "What makes somebody Jewish? Like, what is it about you how do you identify as a Jew?" And we were teasing it apart, and we sort of came to like these three domains. The first domain that came to most people's minds is I'm Jewish because that is my I'll say genetic cultural inheritance. I was born a Jew. My parents were Jewish. My grandparents. That's just who I am. I don't think about it a lot. It's just the way I was raised, and that's who I am. I don't ask me why is your name Esther. My name is really Esther Benin, but why is your name Esther Benin Hidary? I don't know. That's my name. That's who I am. Right? I don't think about that too hard. And so most Jews have that identity. What I struggle with that identity is, pause for like anecdote. I watch Top Chef. Does anybody here watch, like, thumbs up? It's a good show. You should watch Top Chef. It's fun. Anyway, my son and I, my 8-year-old, are addicted to cooking competition shows during quarantine. It's unclear why that might be. So we watch a lot of them. We're watching Top Chef. We're watching season 16, you could watch it, and one of the contestants is Jewish, okay? Her name is Sarah. And in the last episode we watched, she made matzo ball soup, and the matzo ball soup had a shrimp base to it. It was like matzo ball soup with shrimp. And I turned to him, and he's 8, and he's sort of looking at me. He's like, what? Why is she putting shrimp in her matzo ball soup? And it's really confusing. So to me, she's the example of, she identifies as Jewish. She thinks of herself as a Jew for sure. And I like that. I'm glad that she has that identity. She has aspects of that identity that have something to do with her cultural inheritance, right? My mom made matzo balls. My parents are from Europe. They escaped. But it's a very limited, so what she doesn't have is the other aspect of Jewish identity, which was the other #1 piece of what it means to be a Jew, which is our adherence to and acceptance of Jewish law. And for me, I would phrase that as like our immersion in the covenant, okay? That we accept upon ourselves that we are a covenanted people, that we are part of a berit with God, and that covenant demands a level of abiding by certain laws and certain strictures. It dictates many aspects of our life and our existence. And from the way we get dressed, to the way we eat, to the way we experience time and space, these laws compromise what it means to be a Jew. And so when we meet somebody who's maybe a cultural Jew, that first category, and then we also have the aspect of the Jewish by Jewish law, that's where some, friction emerges. Because for us, I'm saying for us, I'm going to say for me, it's very hard to separate those two things out. Matzo ball soup with shrimp is something I'm deeply uncomfortable with. Mostly because I don't think it's a way to retain your Jewish identity. In a generation or two, I would suppose that all that will remain is maybe the matzo balls, but no other real connection to Jewish life, to Jewish, and to what it means to be a Jew. I'm sorry, I have to pause for muting. So we have Jewish identity as being cultural, almost genetic, biological. It's also about law. Now, after that, when I started to talk to my students about this, we started to lose our way a little. And then somebody mentioned Israel. And what's interesting is that it's mentioned, but it's mentioned, it was long into the conversation that it came up. And I thought that was very striking, because if you are a student of Judaism, or if you've ever read the Torah, which we all do, and studied it, you know that almost every part of the Torah is a conversation about our connection to the land of Israel. It's an inherent part of what it means to be a Jew. Our identities are tied to this land. And I don't know why, I do know why. I'll talk about it in a minute. So our Judaism, it has these three pieces to it. And the piece that we really want to investigate a little bit more deeply with each other is our tie that we spoke about in the beginning to the land of Israel, this almost deep vein that runs in us of knowing that it's where the place that we call home. Now, in the Torah, what's very interesting is that I like to point this out to people. We, let's say the core of the Torah, the 5 books, we're not really in Israel. Abraham is there, Yitzchak, but then by the time we get to Yaakov, we're already leaving and going to Egypt. And then the rest of the books are about our attempted journey to reach our homeland, right? And I say what it means to be a Jew, if you really think about it, is that you can survive in exile, but your true existence is in Israel, right? Is in your homeland. You survive in exile, but you thrive in your homeland. So the Torah actually has both parts to it. It teaches very deep lessons about how you can exist without being in Israel. And I think that's why for a lot of people, when you say, is Israel a core piece of your identity, it's not the first thing that they think about. However, when you really dig into what it means to be a Jew, in the Torah, you cannot extricate yourself from the land completely. And the Torah will give many examples of this, but I'm actually going to use an analogy that I think is very relevant to the current situation. And the analogy I want to use for understanding the role that Israel should play in our life and does play in our lives is to think a little bit about quarantine together, okay? Right now, all of us are trapped in our homes, okay? To varying degrees of comfort. And as I say this, I'm gonna edit it and say, I'm really gonna talk about my experience of being at home with my children. However, I think in my ideal picture of how this conversation goes, I'm thinking more about like our existence in quarantine in a theoretical world. By that, I mean like the multi-generational existence. Like if we were all together, my almost like on a compound, like my sisters and my brothers and my parents and my in-laws. Like I could find a way to be quarantined with a little bit of a larger circle, okay? But even because the loneliness of being quarantined without your children or without your parents is very difficult. But I thankfully am here in my house with my 4 children, and it's given me a lot of time to think about my priorities in my life. And one thing that I know about myself before this, and unfortunately you could ask everybody about this, is that I actually am a bit of a homebody. So some of this comes very naturally to me. You know, I like to be home. I like to be with my family. I don't love going out a lot. Although I work every single day, but I'm not always comfortable going out. And I was thinking, what makes me uncomfortable with being out and about a lot? And I talk about this in many classes, that there's something that happens when we have to go outside and greet the world that involves putting on a show to a degree. I mean, a lot of us have, don't do it too much, but many of us, even remember I spoke about putting on makeup and brushing my hair. Like, I haven't done it for my kids in the last 6 weeks, and they didn't seem to, it's not part of something I need to do for the people who love me, right? So why do I need to do it when I go out into the world? Something about going out into the world has to do with, putting on some type of mask or putting on some type of alternate identity. Not that you're lying or you're not being honest. It's just that, you have to smile a little bit more than you usually would. You know what I'm talking about? Like smiling when you really don't want to smile. Like, oh yes, I'm so interested in everything you're saying. I'm not interested. I just want to go about my day. Or, you have to be polite. Being polite is very exhausting. I don't know about the rest of you, but that takes up a lot of human energy. You have to say things you wouldn't normally say. And my famous example I give people is like when I saw someone, they were telling me about a book that they read. And I'm like, yes, I really enjoyed that book. But I hadn't read the book. Why did I say that? And then I couldn't unsay it because I already said it. And for the rest of my life, I sort of avoided that person because every time I'm going to see her, she's going to ask me about that book. I never really read it, and I don't want to tell her I was a liar. That to me is my experience of being in the world. When I watch like Larry David, I feel like I really understand, that moment, just the awkwardness. You say the wrong thing, you do it in the wrong way, right? It's constant. When the way the Torah speaks about that feeling that I'm putting in very human terms, I think a lot about its narratives about, let's say, Yosef or Megillat Esther, all right? Characters who are in exile and their identities have to get covered up to a degree, because there's this understanding that if you present yourself in the fullness of your Jewishness, or if your Jewish identity, or even of your actual identity, that somewhere society will turn against you or reject you, okay? And at home, there is no fear of condemnation or rejection. That's what a healthy home looks like. Not all, that's not constant for everyone. That's why I said it's an ideal picture that I'm drawing. But really, in a healthy home, you feel safe, you feel secure, you feel at peace. You don't feel like you have to prove anything to anyone. If you make a bad joke, nothing happens, right? If you look bad, no one cares. They know you. And that's the analogy I like to use for how we're supposed to feel about Israel. Israel is the place where we are at home. It's not where we have to hide. It's not a place that we have to be other than ourselves. It's a place that we can experience the fullness of our Jewish selves, our Jewish identity, and even deeper than our Jewish identity, like our core being. So why, when we're scared and lonely, do we yearn for Israel? It's because we yearn from the comfort of being fully accepted and safe, being somewhere that we know will never reject us or deny us, right? And I was reading, the very sad articles that you read about people who either don't support Israel or reject the Jewish right to Israel. And that's, I would say, the majority of the world we live in, which of course is very frightening to us. But the reason I think they reject it is that I don't think they take any responsibility for the fact that Jews have never had a place that they could call home. It is the only place in the world that we have that level of security. And we call it a level of security, even though it's one of the most insecure places on the planet, right? But for us, it is completely secure because it is a place that we're willing to die for, okay? It's not about physical security. It's about our spiritual, emotional, and religious security. And that's what we're not willing to give up on. Now, I speak about being home, and I speak about family, and I speak about a yearning for family. But I'm going to take this analogy one step further and say, what I often feel we have to say on Yom Haasmaut, that loving Israel and loving your family does not mean that you get along all the time and that you're all singing Kumbaya 24/7. By the way, I've never sung, I don't know what Kumbaya is. I think it's a song that Boy Scouts sing. I want to have more information about it because I use the phrase a lot. Either way, I mean, I'm home with my kids. The number one word that we've been using is stop that. I don't know if anybody has kids. Like the number one word in the house right now is stop. Can you please stop? If you do not stop, you must stop, okay? And that word is prevalent because they're doing annoying things because they're bored, okay? But in general, families fight. That's normal. We're supposed to fight with each other. Just because you love someone doesn't mean you agree with them about everything. And what one piece I feel is missing in our dialogue around our connection and love to Israel is that it's okay to have debates about it. It's okay to argue around what's best for the country going forward. It's okay to vote for different political parties in Israel and to support different ones, right? The one thing I would say I do not support are people who don't support Israel at all. And that's somewhere, you know, and that the analogy holds, right? So for example, I could fight with my siblings, but if somebody else tries to fight with my siblings, you know, I'm not okay with it. I don't need you to, you know, I don't want anybody outside of the family coming in and telling me how to run my life, how to do things. We will solve it internally. That's something I feel very passionate about. But I don't find that Jews have reached that healthy, comfortable level, knowing that our love is not bound by complete agreement and complete saying Israel is perfect and it's only done good in this world. It's okay, you're allowed to criticize it, but we're criticizing it the way family does. And that moderation is very necessary if we're going to continue to support Israel in a healthy way. We have to be very scholarly about it. We have to know everything about it. But we have to give it our heart and soul the same way we would give our family our heart and soul. And we would do anything for it. And we would sacrifice everything for it. So I want to read in conclude, you know, it's already 4:25 and we have to end it in 2 minutes. I know that went very quickly, but they're only half-hour classes. I mean, it went quickly for me. You guys are like, you're the only one talking. We're bored. But I'm going to read you what my dad told me to read you, which I agree with him, which is this last, on Shabbat, we read this Haftarah from Yeshayahu, because it was Rosh Chodesh on Shabbat, and this is what we read. But it's very eloquently puts, I think, a lot of the points I was going to say. Number one, it starts by saying, "B'terem tachil yalada, b'terem yavo chevel la v'himlita zachad." Right before she even labored, she delivered before her pangs came, and she bore a son. Whoever heard of anything like this? Whoever heard of such an event? Can a land pass through travail in a single day? Is a nation born all at once? Yet Sion will bear children with immediacy, and I will bring her into being without labor. Now, the problem with this is it took a very long time for Israel to be reestablished. There was that journey, there was the aliyot. In fact, that moment when it suddenly became ours, from the time of the Holocaust till the time we got Israel, it was almost like somebody had flipped a light switch. It was immediate. It was, we needed it. It was there to rescue us, and suddenly we had it. And anyone who studies Israel feels that there was a miraculous hand involved in that process. And it goes on to say Simchu et Yerushalayim begilu ba kol ahaveha. Sisu et masos kol hamitavlim aleha. Right? Rejoice with Jerusalem and be glad for her. All you who love her, join in her jubilation. All you who mourned over her, for she will be prosperous once again. And this is so interesting that we just read it this Shabbat, because that is what we feel about Israel, that we should have this feeling of joy, of rejoicing, and of acceptance. My last line is maybe not the right thing to say, but I want to say, one thing that bothers me, and you could spread the word about this, we are so careful. The rabbis created a system that once we lost the land, that we would still have a permanent remembrance of the land. So every time we do something, we think about Jerusalem, we quote Jerusalem, we hearken back to Yerushalayim, right? And under Al Chuppah, we say, Im eshkachech Yerushalayim tishkach yimini, right? If I should forget you, O Jerusalem, we all know this, and then we hit the glass. One thing that shocks me, though, is that very few grooms know this line by heart. It's about how I'm never going to forget you, Jerusalem. The rabbi's got to feed him the line. They also don't know the line of, Hareat Mikudesh at Li, like I declare my. I want to take upon ourselves today. We should all memorize this, because we shouldn't be stumbling over our memory of Israel and Jerusalem. We shouldn't be stumbling over our connection to it. And when we're on those college campuses and we're talking to our teenagers and we're talking to the outside world and they say, how could you support it? How could you do? We should not stumble in our acceptance and love for Israel. It should be like talking about our family and our parents and our loved ones. It is in us. It is undeniable. It is our identity, okay? To deny it is to deny our own selves. May we see in the rebuilding of Jerusalem to its fullest. May we only see peace in the land of Israel. May we, next year, when we say the words, next year in Jerusalem, may Hashem bring it to be with true reality, that all of us will be celebrating this time next year together in Jerusalem, a renewal of our nation, a renewal of our identity. I wish you all only good things on this day. You could talk on the chat for a few minutes or unmute yourself if you like, but good luck. Good.
Thank you, Esther.